I'm in.
So back in 2020, Steamroller self-financed a short film called Spice Frontier.
The sensors show no motion or any heat signatures.
It was really successful and brought a lot of attention to the visual style we're developing at Steamroller.
It's sea salt.
Kent, get out now.
So Spice Frontier takes place a long time after Earth has been destroyed.
Open door?
It's a really fun sci-fi adventure about a chef named Kent. He's searching the universe for the lost ingredients of his human ancestors so he can share the joy of Earth's forgotten recipes with the universe.
Graham crackers.
After the success of the short film, we decided Spice Frontier would be an amazing project to develop as an animated TV series. So I think the benefits of doing Spice Frontier as an animated series instead of a film or a short film format is we just get to spend a lot more time with the characters. And we love these characters and we love their stories. And it'd be really difficult to tell that in a film format where you're kind of structured and you're limited in how much you can really get into the details of it. So Spice Frontier has a pretty distinct artistic look that we've been developing at Steamroller for some time now. From an animation perspective, that unique look presents some really interesting performance challenges for the animation team. One has to do with the flat shading of the characters. We don't get a lot of dimension, and sometimes even elements can kind of blend into each other if we don't pose them in certain ways. So there's a lot more intentional focus on silhouette and making sure that everything is reading clearly within the confines or, you know, the limitations of that style choice. And then the other side of it is the twos side of it. There's some risk of things feeling like they're strobing for the audience or like they're dropping frames. And we just have to be really intentional with our spacing when we make that transition into that style and put a lot of care into making sure that that doesn't distract from, you know, the performance and the story.
The farm is just the beginning. Imagine this. Restaurants and food stalls as far as the eye can see.
Because the style of Spice Frontier is so challenging for the animators, when it comes to how we do casting,
me being a Calionian and all that mess between us and them, not that I agree with any of it. You know, it's just politics.
and we have a ramp-up process where everybody does the same two tasks, and that allows them to get, one, familiar with the style as they're getting familiar with the project, but also evaluate where they stand in terms of that style and how they do with each characters and which one they potentially like more or are stronger at. When we did the Spice Frontier short, we only had a few characters we needed to design the performances for. Now with the pilot episode, we have over half a dozen different characters we need to understand. Ultimately, we start with what the art team provides us, and they're a huge source of inspiration. They're doing expression sheets and post-tests that really help push the boundaries as we enter, you know, rigging and animation and influence like how far do we need to push these rigs, and using those as our baseline for like shape language and the specifics of each character that we're going to carry through to animation. We'll also collect a bunch of found footage of specific actors that we think have characteristics or quirks that inspire us when it comes to the character. The animation team will specifically refer to our animation Bible, which we're fleshing out as we go, but it's finalizing those specifics in terms of if you go too wide with the mouth, he turns into the Joker, or you go too narrow and he starts to feel like he's talking like this. And just like, there's a lot of details and specifics that really make each character who they are, and we're trying to outline that. And for some characters that's more established, but for others, animators are sort of helping establish those things.
Well, it's not too bad. Aside from cosmetic damage, it looks like we just lost an engine coil.
Spice Frontier is a huge project for us at Steamroller because we're actually building a brand new pipeline around its development from the ground up. We have a bunch of original stories we're developing at Steamroller, so the pipeline we're building is going to form the backbone of our production processes for years to come. So, no pressure. One of the main components of this new pipeline for us is the implementation of the Unreal Engine. A lot of people are using Unreal, and it has many benefits to offer across the pipeline. But something that we're trying to do that's new ground for us is actual animation in Unreal. And that comes with many challenges where we need tools and we don't have them yet, but we also get to have a significant voice and like what this is going to look like, not just for Spice, but for Steamroller down the line.
Anyone else hear that?
You hear it too. I thought it was just in my head.
So the layout workflow that we are doing is kind of unique. I've been in the industry for a while and everything's always been shot-based. We're always assigned one shot. It's never sequential. We're always in Maya. We're always using that one tool. We've always rendered out gray frames, and that's always been a real struggle for us because it's really hard to see what the shot is actually doing when you just see a bunch of gray smearing across the screen. So when I came here and we were presented with the opportunity to use Unreal Engine, we were like, okay, well, everybody's used to Maya, so how are we gonna get our artists used to being able to do shot work in both? And so we were toying with the idea of using both and going between them and using kind of a hybrid. After a few tests, we decided that it doesn't make sense to use both programs. If we're gonna use Unreal Engine, let's use Unreal Engine. We're just gonna jump right in head first and we'll figure everything out. The really cool part about doing that is now we're working in sequences. So instead of just one shot per artist and they have a stack of shots that have no relation to each other, they're actually able to work on a sequential set of shots. And we're presenting a lot more work, a lot faster to the director.
Yeah, I think the tracking is not working as well.
That was my feeling. I just wanted you to see both ideas.
The cool thing about Unreal is you can do it right there with the director. You can have the engine open and you can, what lens do you want to play with? You change the focal length. You do whatever he wants and whatever he asks for right on the spot. And you can make those changes live. You're getting that feedback that the director needs so much faster than you would by having a review, having production make that note, send it back to the artist, go back to the supervisor. It's all just live.
It feels like it's coming a little... Oh, is it? Did you make it on purpose to come towards us?
Yeah, we were trying to make it so you could see it, but we can adjust it and make sure it's just going straight instead of towards us at an angle.
So I think another reason, and it's a really key one that I don't think is immediately obvious, is the lighting and how it interfaces or interacts with poses that animators are building. Like shadows can really influence the read on a face, or even just highlight certain regions that you may have not given as much love as you would have otherwise. It's almost critical for the integrity of the performance and the honesty that we want to come through on these characters to really see that context and adjust as needed.
Where is this oasis? Hey, there we go.
In a Maya workflow where we're working linearly, we tend to do things and make choices, but it's in a bubble and we can't see the broader context until we get to the end. And then we have to pivot. And it takes a long time to get to that end and then realize we need to go back to the beginning of that pipeline. And in a non-linear flow in Unreal, all the departments get to collaborate and improve things collectively at the same time and react to different creative choices and improve things. And you make choices that probably are a bit more bold sometimes because there's less of a risk, less of a consequence of wasted time. So when we look at the transition of animators coming from a Maya-centric animation, because that's pretty much where most animators work, and transitioning them to Unreal, there's challenges. I think you're learning a new program and you have certain expectations that you take for granted from, a program that's been around for a while, Maya. Now when we come to Unreal, it is missing a lot of those tools that we would want as animators out of the box, but we're building a lot of those, and they're gaps that we can fill and are filling, which is great. The reason I think the industry should be excited about Spice Frontier being done in Unreal specifically is the look of it. It's so unique and showing the industry at large that, Unreal isn't just for realism, which they're really good at, but you can also make art-driven style choices and execute that in the program as well, which is just showing a huge level of flexibility there.
Whisking the oil? Oh, and now that's just the first part.
Another thing I think is just the scope of Spice Frontier, and being able to do that in Unreal. It takes a long time in general, but being able to do it in Unreal, we're looking to save a significant amount of time and money, and hopefully not just focus on other stories, but the animator in me wants to sort of channel that and hopefully push the quality that we can achieve as well.
The idea for Spice Frontier came from my love for food and space. Now, I love Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, and all the adventures, and also I love Star Trek. Maybe there's a story there. Maybe I can have an ensemble of characters traveling the universe looking for the lost ingredients of Earth. What's incredibly important for us is to tell stories that are truly character, but also emotionally driven. So for us, we are using the same technique of tabletop role-playing games, such as D&D or with the White Wolf system. Never as a dungeon master do you want to have a rigid plot line, because you cannot force your players to do what you want them to do. You just build a world, throw them in and see what they do. So we do tell our stories the same way.
I really think Spice Frontier, the short film that we did a couple years ago, was successful for us on a few different fronts. Primarily, we wanted to show ourselves that we could do more than just the animation, that we can do the whole pipeline. And so it was meant as a bit of a business card to the animation studios out there, potential clients, to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we can do, and we'd love to work with you. We do awesome work with amazing clients every day, but it's always in their visual style. We have to hit their notes. And so for us, this was an opportunity as a studio to figure out, what is our visual style?
Well, it's not too bad. Aside from cosmetic damage, it looks like we just lost an engine coil.
So after the release of the short film, it did really well and people reacted really well to it. It did the festival circuit and it won, quite a few awards. And it gave us the courage to continue to make more Spice Frontier stories.
Really, I mean, 3 planets in a month, and all that rare flora I've seen already. But, it's still strange for me, being on the same ship as a Varian.
Hello, I'm Josh Carroll, creative director on Spice Frontier here at Steamroller Animation. At the time that we made the original short, the studio was limited in what we could do, the time we could invest, the amount of artists on staff, and now we've really brought that forward with a full crew, and we're really taking every step of the process and really pushing it forward. And then beyond that, we also are leveling up our technology as well. So as we're integrating Unreal Engine and real-time workflows, we're finding key developments in the way we can tell visual stories, and they're really just opening a new door into the future for us that is really unlimited, and we're super excited about where it's going to go. The visual style of Spice Frontier is really based on a traditional classic sense of 2D animated films, where you have sort of flat graphic characters against a more rendered painterly background. We really kind of took that as inspiration and are now looking to kind of bring that forward into sort of the modern day and the modern era.
Anyone else hear that?
You hear it too. I thought it was just in my head.
Trying to develop appealing characters is like the holy grail for any artist. It's very difficult to figure out what is appealing, why is it appealing. One of them is we keep things simple, really push our shapes, and we make bold decisions about things, and we'll push them so far that they break sometimes, and we have to pull them back a little bit. But I think finding those limits for a character and how far you can push it was really important for us.
And the air is breathable. You can remove your helmets.
Oh, come on! Oh, that's disgusting. I think someone got in my suit.
Hi, I'm Tad Branham. I'm head of design at Steamroller Animation, and I'm production designer on episode 1 of Spice Frontier. I come from a background that is very much focused on silhouette and forms that are easily readable. So I think to take those principles and transfer them into the animation realm, into the 3D realm, where we can take some of the principles of graphic design, where we're focusing on silhouette and forms that are easily readable, allows us to create characters that are appealing and interesting to look at.
So with the characters, what we did is we analyzed the original short that we produced and tried to understand and really look for the limitations in the character's facial expressions. And now what we're doing is we're basically building out the character more three-dimensionally, more expressive eyes, and with all these sorts of visual cues that are going to allow the audience to really hone in on them. Also, we crafted the models now to be able to push that performance and to really get a broad range of expression where we can push the animated quality, push the level of cartoon sensibility, or just enhance the drama or the expressiveness of the emotions that are going on in the scenes.
So a good example of that is when we were designing Sela in particular. We did probably hundreds of mouth shapes, and it wasn't until we settled on this very simple half circle shape. It helped us realize what we really needed to be focusing on with Sela was her eyes and her eyebrows, and how they relate expression and how she's feeling to the camera.
My name is Antonio Scodrani, and I'm lighting supervisor at Steamroller Animation, and I'm currently working on the Spice Frontier project. First of all, we need to understand that the characters do not get lit the same way that the environment is. So the environment gets lit individually on its own. We get to be able to add light pools and create a composition with lights and shadow. And when we add the characters, they just stand out from the background. So what we need to do then is grade the characters to fit accordingly in the scene, add rim lights where positions of lights make sense. And then on top of that, to just ground the entire character to the background, we add gobos to be able to mimic effects and just have a bit more dynamic in the scene.
One of the challenges we had when We have these very simple characters, very simple designs, and they're going over top of more detailed backgrounds. Is how do we make it look like they're integrated well with each other and they're harmonious to each other. And one of the inspirations we looked to actually was, Disney feature films from back in the day. Movies like Sleeping Beauty. You look at that and such bold character designs against very detailed backgrounds, but they work. We challenge ourselves, well, why do they work? And for us, we discovered it was all about the value. If as long as you have the correct values on a character and they match the lighting values that you have in the background, then it works, and you can get away with quite a bit as far as the contrast between your character and your background because the values are working with each other.
The other way that we're integrating them is in the color script process. What the color script does is it's essentially a roadmap for the emotional beats of the story. And then from there, what we've actually been able to do is take the color swatches from that color script, and we're able to apply them to the characters when we're with the characters in Unreal and actually use those color swatches to marry the characters to the background so they feel more integrated as a whole.
A lot of the tools that have been created over the last couple of decades have been made to leverage 3D and all the wonderful things it can do. And now we're coming in and going, we want to do something more 2D, more simplified in its design. And how do we achieve that?
So the first thing to keep in mind is that a traditional film workflow is extremely linear. One department does its job and then passes the product on to the next department, onto the next department, onto the next department. And really the promise of Unreal that's being realized for us right now in episode 1 is that multiple departments can become engaged earlier and simultaneously. So lighting is happening at the same time that layout is happening and animation is happening. And we're able to sort of all kind of collaborate more closely to refine to get a better whole at the end of it all.
Yeah, I wonder if we can get the particle stuff that you're putting on at the end of this video onto the interior as well and see how that looks.
The fact that we no longer have subdivision surfaces in Unreal Engine to work with, it changes the amount of polys that we can deal with at any one time. The lighting and surface information works from sort of a traditional PBR offline renderer. Many of our artists that have worked on the show have come from a traditional offline PBR rendered approach to animated film, and we've really had to adapt those skill sets to an Unreal-centric workflow, really to a game engine.
For example, setting up compositions and environments that environment artists are able to set dress. Lighters are able to give their first pass on these shots. Once animation comes in, we have our first part of the shot completed, and we're able to view it with all the department's contributions. This gives the entire team a boost of morale because they're able to see close to final results in engine while working without really affecting the performance of the project.
One thing to note as well, Jalil, is in this shot we have the gobo. So the gobo will darken down the shade of Sela, but it won't darken down her neon parts because they're lights.
So I actually believe that the largest obstacles in developing the look for Spice Frontier Episode 1 are actually technological problems. And at this point, it's just a matter of finding ways to implement a very graphic, stylized, art-directed sensibility in Unreal Engine.
Because we're switching as a whole studio to Unreal, our workforce has to adapt as well. So there's this staggering waiting line of people having to first get trained before they're able to jump into the trenches and fix problems. It's all those different branches that are coming together where we have technological and artistic challenges. But there is a silver lining to it all. For example, rendering is way faster compared to a conventional VFX pipeline where you would do offline renders. Here it takes merely minutes to get a shot out. But obviously, it didn't come without its own problems.
I think anytime you do something new and different, you're going to hit challenges. We have, for example, a much bigger team this time around where we've got 32 minutes instead of 8 minutes like we had on the short film that we've got to produce. We're doing it in a visual style that's unique to us. We're figuring that out, but then also, how do we actually create that? How do we pull it off? And on top of it all, we're trying to do it in Unreal, which is an amazing engine, but it's been mostly for video games. And now we're trying to do linear content in a video game engine and develop those tools to help us achieve that.
What's 880?
Come on, Eloy, get the power back on!
880's pretty serious!
So I believe that the value of Unreal implementation to the studio is a forward-looking approach to animation creation. It allows us to iterate quickly. It allows us to iterate on artistic things like lighting early. So any director who comes in and works in our pipeline can really get amazing visual feedback very early in the show.
This is really looking a lot better now, and I'm happy that we got a lot of rotation and stuff in on those that you were able to fix the problem with the rock rotations. I think we're almost there.
Now, beyond that, the complications have been that everything around Unreal Engine is specific. So we've had to tailor our whole pipeline specifically to how Unreal Engine works, how Unreal Engine transfers data, and the amount of computing power Unreal Engine takes, as we are sort of using Unreal Engine in a way that hasn't historically been the case.
Oh, that reminds me. Hey, it's been a month since you joined the Cipriano. Happy month anniversary. What do you think?
It's been fine.
It's been fine?
The great thing about using one tool to do everything in it is how easy it is for emotionally to be invested in the film much early on in the process. A lot of times when you are watching shots in lighting is when you go, oh, that's what it feels like. And sometimes it might be too late to make changes at that point. And it's very helpful as a director and a creative to actually be making decisions emotionally so early within, in that process.
That hip movement feels a bit too much.
Species from every...
Feels like we need to tone it down, so maybe he doesn't start so far from the right.
The level of artistry that I've seen here and the excitement and the heart around the storytelling that we're producing is just gonna blow people away. And so I can't wait to share that with the world. I can't wait to hear what the world thinks of what we're doing.
A really exciting part of this project is that I've been on it since day one. I got to design Kent and Sela, and they're still my babies. And when we were working on the short, we were just dreaming of these other characters and hoping that one day we would see them get to come to life. And so to see that happen with this episode and to see the world expand, it's personally very meaningful to me to see that dream fulfilled.
I know for me, I get very excited when I see my peers out there in the animation industry doing different things. The fact that we're trying new styles, new storytelling techniques, new technology, using Unreal, all of these things will hopefully help push the animation industry forward. And so that's exciting for us, but hopefully it's exciting for the industry at large, because a high tide raises all ships, and we're all in this together, and hopefully we're able to kick the ball forward a little bit, and then our peers are doing the same thing, and hopefully together we're making the animation industry more diverse and more exciting with the type of stories we're telling.
But we have to try. And finding Earth ingredients is the first step.
The strategy of Steamroller Animation has always been, if you build it, they will come. So we're using that same philosophy producing our pilot episode of Spice Frontier. Now, it's a different beast funding a whole TV series, but we know with the quality that we're producing, we will find the right partner to help us, show it to the world.
We're very fortunate in that Spice Frontier episode 1, we're able to make ourselves, and that's really exciting. It's awesome. We're controlling our destiny. But at the same time, making an animated series like this, it's big. It takes a lot of work, a lot of money to do that. And so, quite honestly, we're looking for help. We're looking for a partner to help join us on this journey and just keep the momentum going that we've already started and carrying it all the way to, getting the season 1 completely finished.
Sweet pickles?
Yeah, sometimes I shout food names when I get startled.
I think the most important thing right now for us is the team that we have. You don't make something like what we are trying to do if you don't have a team that is fully committed in the vision. I cannot be more proud of this team because they know the difficulties, they know how, what are the challenges ahead of them, and they dive right in. I love every single person on this team and all the effort that they're putting, in this project. And I wake up every morning and I go onto a shot grid just to look at what everybody's doing. And everything that they're producing looks better than I could have ever imagined.
As production manager on Spice Frontier, my job is to make the plan for the project, which means the scheduling, setting up the milestones, discuss deliverables with our director Jalil, and make sure that we are sticking to the plan.
I work with the production team that directly works on Spice to ensure that they are fully supported. So are they having all of the tools they need to succeed? Do they have a strong work-life balance? As well as are they growing within their career the way that they want to?
As a production coordinator on Spice Frontier, I mainly focus on supporting the artist on their day-to-day workflows, make sure they're not running into any blockers. We organize and manage daily reviews for each department, tracking notes and making sure that we're on schedule.
We work with project management software like ShotGrid to keep up with the bids, make sure everything is on track, call out concerns.
Another big part of my job is setting priorities and deciding on priorities. If we are having fires in multiple places, which one should be put out first and which one would be have the least impact on our schedule and our deliveries.
Right now, we currently stand about 60 people on Spice Frontier, and we're looking to continue to ramp up the team size throughout the year, specifically our Unreal team.
As artists move to other teams to help out with client work, we like to think of them as still helping Spice even if their tasks are not actively on Spice, because client work helps fund the studio, which helps fund Spice.
Some of the obstacles that we face on a daily basis is we're building our pipeline as we go. We're trying to build tools that optimize workflows for our artists.
Now with Spice Frontier, we're changing the more traditional linear format, and instead we're going with a real-time workflow that, in all honesty, we don't have anybody to lean back on for questions that has gone through this process fully before, creating an entire full pipeline A to Z show within Unreal. But because of that, we have now the capability to help shape this future workflow that we're hoping to see is utilized more often throughout the industry. And because of the environment that Steamroller is, it's an extremely collaborative environment. It's not production sitting on the sidelines kind of just getting tossed around during this chaotic process and trying to figure out what sticks. Instead, production is helping be a driving force for this and is working with each department to keep them interconnected with one another.
There is a learning curve for production because so many of us did come from that traditional linear background on productions. This is still episode 1 of a new project, and we're still experimenting with how we want the pipeline to work in general. We can sometimes open up a shot during dailies and make changes needed right there and see it in real time and decide. And so certain notes can be addressed much faster as opposed to in a more traditional workflow.
I've been on many shows that have had, traditional workflows versus here on Spice Frontier, we're using Unreal Engine that allows us to have departments overlapping, working on the same sequences where we don't have to wait on dependencies to unlock different departments later in the pipeline.
Being in the talent and culture representative role for a project like Spice Frontier is insanely fulfilling for me. Each talent culture representative has around 30 people that they get to take care of. Those 30 people can range in a variety of different teams, projects, departments, shows, whatever might be going on within Steamroller Animation.
We make sure that they are working on their career goals, professional development that can include training, any soft skills, any animation skills. We make sure that they're moving in the right direction as far as growth. They're going to build those relationships and they're gonna wanna come to work and they're gonna wanna say, I did that, I helped build that project, I helped work on that show. And to me, that's everything.
Even if my job means a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of data wrangling, scheduling, there's also a huge part of it that involves the team and taking care of the team. The TCRs are so helpful when it comes to that. I wouldn't be able to, do that without them.
We have a small group of Unreal experts. The majority of our team hasn't worked in Unreal Engine before, so we're really focused on training up each department and bringing them into the engine. The goal for us is to be able to have each department work independently in the engine.
The main thing for me with us stepping away from a linear content workflow and moving into a real-time one, it's new to us. It's new to the majority of our team. It's only a very small part of our team that are very familiar with the engine. And for the rest of us, it's really a learning curve. So there's a lot of training involved with our team, a lot of research and development.
We have a whole entire library, an online curriculum database where we can go learn as much as possible with that specific skill set, that specific curriculum, be able to synthesize that, create a presentation, and be able to facilitate some form of training for those teammates that might be struggling within a certain area. As a talent and culture representative, there's many different varieties of ways in which we get to socialize with our staff. Now, that might result in something like happy hour, where they get to hang out, have drinks, play games, engage. One of my personal favorites, though, is Let's Chat. Let's Chats are a really unique opportunity as a talent and culture representative to be able to create a breakout space for different teammates on a project to come together and just chat, just hang out, talk, connect, see what's going on, and see how the rest of the team is doing.
We work remotely, and so we don't have the ability to connect when we're walking to get a drink of water or get a cup of coffee. So Let's Chats are another tool that the TCR team uses, and it's just talking about life and getting to know that person as a person and outside of the artist role.
We get to play games and just, interact outside of a work meeting. So it allows, each department to connect with each other and just have a good time. Every department is so collaborative and so committed to making this project the best it can be.
It's really unique. There's no other studio I can think of that's working on something like Spice Frontier at this time. And to be able to be a part of Steamroller Animation and actually help facilitate the personal growth and development, just not in the soft skills, but within communication, work-life balance, to make sure that the artist is set up for success to make Spice Frontier happen is pretty cool. I'm very grateful to be a part of that team and project.
Even just one animator has stepped up their skill. It's like, okay, they worked so hard, now I want to work hard too. I want to be the best that I can be so that I can help them make the best work that they can make and be the best they can be. So I'm inspired by our team.
So being on Spice Frontier for 1.5 years as a TCR has been amazing. I've been with it since April of last year, and to see people grow in their roles has been a joy for me.
Being a 90s kid, animated movies have always played a big part of my life, my childhood. 2D animation, 3D animation, and I've always been a huge nerd when it comes to animation. I would like to see Steamroller take over the world, be one of the big ones or the biggest, and create those amazing movies and TV shows that are, high quality and wonderful stories.
I started at Steamroller in January 2020, and it was probably around 80 people at that time, and now we're 200 plus, and I have never felt a difference in the love of the studio, the connection in the studio, and the environment that's built within the studio. Steamroller is a very diverse place to work. There are people of all sorts, and there are interests of all sorts, and it makes up this incredible, great group of human beings that come together to put out an entirely creative product, whether we're working with clients and helping them accomplish their stories, or we're working on our own stories, something that all of us here are incredibly passionate about.
So the rigging department kind of sits between the creation of a character model and the animation of that character. When the modeling department sculpts a beautiful character, it doesn't have any way of moving, and the rigging department is sort of the puppeteer that ties the strings up to that thing, puts a skeleton in it, and makes it so that the animation team can animate it. Steamroller does a lot of different types of work for a lot of different clients, and when I joined, a lot of that work was sort of being done in isolation. Each project has its own requirements. If a project even had a rigging team, they would sort of solve their own problems and do what they needed to do for that particular client. The rigging tool set that we're using internally is called Puppeteer, and it's something that I've been developing over many years before coming to Steamroller. And in addition to its goals of sort of serving the animation team, it also is built with workflow in mind for the rigging team.
The Puppeteer tool is an umbrella of tools with many different things for us riggers to use to make our jobs and lives a little easier and a little faster. Coming from a traditional background of rigging in which you have the joints set up, you do the constraints to the controls and set everything up more manually, and then to go in and do your skin weighting as you usually do. To go from a mindset of that's the usual, that's the norm, to this new mindset of using the Puppeteer tool, which puts you into this new place of learning the matrix system, which is a completely different way of thinking about numbers, the math behind the magic, and allows for a different type of creativity. One thing that the Puppeteer system has helped overcome in terms of problems within traditional rigging to working off of this new system is speed and efficiency. It makes it so that the frame rate is better for the rig while the animator is working. It's calculating more in real time now that they have access to a faster rig.
Another project, if we get a note from animation on proportions or just a pivot position that we have to move, that happens all the time. With this tool, since it's set up with parent, offset parent matrix, it's quick, we move our pivots, it's already connected, we reset our skins with a quick click, and we just concentrate again on shape and deformation. So a task that should take a day before, it takes minutes.
So I've been an animator and a rigger over the course of my career, and I've built and I've animated a lot of different puppets, and that experience has informed my philosophies that I bring to designing a rigging workflow and designing specific puppets. Building a good puppet is a bit of a balance because you have different requirements from different departments, and those requirements don't always play nicely together.
So some of the differences between working on client rigs and versus our own is being able to work directly with the rigging team on level of detail and complexity. So a lot of times as you're building on a client rig, you'll request fixes and the rigs get progressively more complex as you continue working on a project. And something that we were thinking of from the ground floor as we were developing the rigs before even jumping into full animation was trying to achieve more quality of deformation with less and only adding that complexity where we absolutely needed it.
So there's a few novel approaches we've taken to support both sending animation to Unreal and to make performance as fast as possible for the animators. Because Unreal limits us to just skin and blend shapes, the shaping that you would normally do with a suite of like layered deformers, we're having to represent with basically just a lot of joints. Kent has about 400 joints in just his face, which you don't really want to have to animate individually. Controlling the behavior of all those joints requires a lot of rigging, which at a certain point can be a drag on performance. Which brings me to our next approach, which is this strategy of minimizing node count in the graph as much as possible, and particularly transform count. We're using Maya's relatively new matrix connections and nodes to achieve a lot of that. But the biggest gain has been from relying pretty heavily on an older technology in Maya, which is expressions. Expressions have gotten a bad rap in the past, but I've found them to be actually one of the best tools for optimizing rigging, because one expression node can do the work of literally hundreds of math nodes, and on top of that I find it makes prototyping and debugging easier as well. Even after that, we still have this relatively dense skeleton, which leads us to our last big trick. Turns out that you don't actually need a skeleton to drive a skin cluster in Maya. So our puppets don't have skeletons. We're basically composing the world matrices in the rigging for each influence and plugging that directly into the skin cluster. And then we just have a tool for building out a skeleton dynamically at export time, or when we need one for painting skin weights and that sort of thing. So all these things together have allowed us to create these feature quality animation puppets that are fast and efficient for our animation team to use and can also be sent to Unreal for rendering. So on Spice Frontier, we're primarily rigging and animating in Maya, but we did challenge ourselves to build a rig and do some animation entirely in Engine. So that was the catalyst to actually dive into Control Rig and try to build a feature quality puppet. Unreal has been kind of a double-edged sword for this project. There's obviously a lot of benefits to real-time rendering and the collaborative pipeline that it provides, but compared with what a lot of people are used to in Maya and traditional rendering pipelines, there's a lot of restrictions. In a traditional rendering pipeline, you are generally working with caches, and anything that you can do in Maya, any deformers you want to use, that gets baked down and sent as a cache to the renderer. In Unreal, for efficiency, we're sticking with FBX, and that means that we're limited in the kind of deformers that we can use. It has provided an interesting challenge to rigging because we kind of have to solve our problems using a limited toolbox. But once you start getting your head around it, you can see that it's been built in a really thoughtful way and a really powerful way. And there's things that you can do in Control Rig that solve problems you never even realized you had in Maya.
Now the challenge was we needed it. We need that same puppet in Unreal Engine. So everyone was kind of green on that area, so we had to train, research, and all of that stuff to make it do what we needed to do from Maya in Unreal. We had a lot of support also from Epic, and it felt incredible, like groundbreaking, right? Like we were right there on the edge, just developing stuff, new updates that they needed from Unreal was tailored to what we needed.
Rigging in Unreal has been taking back the traditional aspects of rigging and applying it to the project. So coming from a traditional mindset of rigging, going through the matrix, going through the puppeteer tool, and then being in a way kind of thrown to the wolves in this new aspect of rigging within Unreal. It refreshes you to just remember all the things that you initially learned and how they still do apply even across programs. Unreal is a challenge because even though it's working off a traditional method of rigging, it doesn't have necessarily everything you need yet. There are some mathematical equations that you can get out of Maya that Unreal likes to keep hidden.
We had this one specific challenge with Nexus's arm transforming into a gun. We've got this complicated transformation that needs to be animated, but only in a handful of shots. And so we don't necessarily want to build all that rigging into the base asset so that it's slowing down scenes for everybody. So basically we split that out into a separate puppet, and then Daniel wrote this system for connecting that up to Nexus in the shots that it's required.
As a rigger and as a problem solver, it's very exciting to know that we have such a great set of tools that allows us to make these great things, these rigs and characters and props that get our animators what they need faster. And as problem solvers, the more problems you solve, the happier you can be faster.
I think something that's really cool about working with the rigs on Spice Frontier is the speed element. I know efficiency was a big driver, but being able to have that speed while also quality of deformation, not having to switch to lower resolution rigs or removing facial animation like we've had to do on other projects that we do for clients, is really exciting because you get real-time feedback, you get to see what the result is, you're not waiting on play blasts, and it allows for rapid iteration.
My favorite part of rigging in Spice Frontier is really the characters. Big charm, they're great characters. I love all of them. And just the topology, just the models are so clean, so good to work with, right? I love our modeling team, and I wish I could rig more characters, to tell you the truth, because I like them all. I can't wait to rig more characters for Spice Frontier.
There's a lot that I like about being a rigger at Steamroller. My experience in other companies, using other people's systems, using my own systems, the status quo of rigging in the industry has been kind of stagnant for a long time, and having the opportunity to try and push that in an environment where I feel supported and we're working on cool projects has been really great.
I think we've laid a really strong foundation. It may not do everything that we need for future projects out of the box, but it's basically a feature set that now we can sort of add on modularly. So we can have multiple characters in there and get real-time playback, user friendliness. That's really exciting for the future. You know, we've been able to establish that, and I think sharing that with other clients' IPs in the future is a great opportunity, and I think they would really benefit from that.
The tools we're developing with this puppeteer tool, I feel like it's the future of our rigging team. Like, we are able to develop kind of like our signature. I'm excited to get more projects, use these tools, and just show everyone what we're able to do here.
We're trying to give the most final image possible as soon as possible, and then maintain and update those all the way through the production until we actually hit final image. The idea is to give us a malleable glimpse as early as possible to allow creative heads to really get involved early and make decisions as things are being built together.
Being able to have your director reviewing your shots inside of Unreal and having somebody, an Unreal operator or shot builder, being able to address nodes live just saves a lot of time. The shot builder, which usually has their hands in every single one of those departments, is able to do those tweaks and able to find themselves within those different parts of the pipeline to be able to address those nodes live.
A master context for us is a subset of shots within a scene that have similarities, like a similar camera or a similar environment. Once we've gone through these bigger overarching problems, then we can start working on the shots individually. Structuring our workflow in this manner allows us to be really efficient and that we're doing the least amount of work to touch the most amount of shots.
How do we create that specific, very graphic 2D look? When I first came on board and I looked at the short that had already been done for Spice Frontier, we didn't want to compromise the style because of the tools that we were using. We had to get under the hood into really what makes Unreal tick and what makes the shaders tick, to see if we could perhaps swim against the grain of what the tool does out of the box and see if we could kind of, hack into these systems to give us this very flat 2D graphic look.
It's almost about shaking people out of an older way of working and making them realize the possibilities. There's a lot of training involved. There's a lot of upskilling involved when, you're learning a new piece of software in the first instance. You're learning a whole new approach, a whole new methodology.
My role as an Unreal artist comes with wearing many different hats, but mainly to push our initial stage of production into a final picture. And that's where I come in and start bringing in everyone's work into a shot context. This means setting up a shot template such as camera, character animation, quality controlling assets that are being used in the shots.
One of the challenges that we're kind of constantly faced with is how do we use the Unreal toolset to create this 2D aesthetic look? What tools do we need to develop? And constantly refining that process, constantly building tools and developing for Unreal to be able to achieve a very specific look. We don't want Unreal to define what we can do. We want to be creative. We want to be able to let the story tell us what we want to do. And then we want to build a tool set and processes within the engine to allow us to do that.
And a lot of the traditional approaches to how you might do something in a VFX pipeline don't quite exist in the engine. They don't quite exist in the real-time context. So there's a lot of small tertiary related tools that just speed along the process when it comes to importing, creating, naming, managing of versions between things that don't quite exist just yet.
There's an extra tier of sophistication to what we're doing, where we're actually manipulating shaders and using a system of gobos and overlays to achieve the same results. Most people coming in as lighters take a little bit of tuning into the process. It's more akin to, say, shaping an illustration, if you like, in our approach, rather than lighting in a full sort of 3D sandbox, if that makes sense.
The life before we had the Gobo implementation was basically that our characters were fully flat. We wouldn't be able to have shapes of shadow or transitions from light into shadow. The moment I joined the company, this was the main point of discussion, was the rim lights on the characters. But we weren't really getting to any solutions where Jalil was happy with it. We were using something called Fresnel. With the amount of characters that we plan on creating for the show, it was something that wasn't really scalable. And now everything is nicely packaged inside the character, and we're able to easily modify and just apply a rim and a gobo.
What this tool does is really automates the structure of how these shots are built. Once the shots are built, they are tied in with our editorial data, so everything is synced up. Once the animation is in the engine, the shot setup tool will then automate the process of putting those characters into the shots.
We have a shot setup tool that allows us to very, very quickly reference our data sets of what our shots are, how long shots are, how they're supposed to be laid out, all decisions that we've made at a high level, and then essentially toolify that down to a few clicks of a button and generate those sequences in Unreal directly without having to manually create many, many nested subsequences. Another tool that we've created from scratch here at Steamroller is our real-time camera projection tool that allows us to mitigate some of the problems with very long lenses and seeing huge amounts of environment. Rather than having to build out assets and texture them individually and stitch them together, we can actually take that one shot that we really need this information for, send it out to our 2D department, have them paint up all of the detail exactly how we want it, and bring it back into the viewport in real time using this tool.
What this tool does is it takes our 2D effects and it allows us to integrate them into 3D. And the tool really allows us to then replicate the exact intention of the artists within the engine without losing fidelity or intention. We came up with a tool that then takes these 2D effects, these image sequences that the team generates, break them down into these sprite sheets, and then we were able to ingest them into Unreal. Then we've built a custom effects projection tool which takes those sprite sheets and then integrates them into our shots. Moving forward, I think there's some really exciting times where we can start to incorporate much more of the production process into this ecosystem to reap the same benefits that we've seen in this shot building process. Pulling in departments like story and layout into an Unreal environment, being able to give our directors and our creatives more information earlier is really important, really exciting and really cool. To go final pixel out of the engine, hopefully almost 100%. To the point where we can go straight from an Unreal render to a DI process would be really fantastic.
I think that the degree to which we're customizing our experience in Unreal and making it our own is really going to be one of the biggest contributors to how we continue to tell stories going forward. We are adapting the engine to what we need. The visual styles and the ways in which we can manipulate those visual styles to what we need as creatives and how we feel we want to make images.
I feel that we're laying a really solid foundations for future projects. I mean, at Steamroller we have, a whole backlog of cool ideas and IPs and our own stories that we want to tell. And I think Spice is laying a very good foundation for those things.
As we get introduced into a new visual style, new environment, we are faced with challenges on how we can achieve this in engine. And the best part about being there with our team is that we are all helping each other in terms of tools to get a final awesome looking piece at the end.
We're really able to start stepping into what real-time can actually offer us and how it can actually move the linear narrative content forward. How can we do things in this new world that we weren't able to do before?
The work that we're currently doing on Spice Frontier will greatly aid our next IPs that we have down the line. We didn't have lighting departments or an environment department before we started Spice Frontier, and we're building those from the ground up to be able to get this project out the door. I think it's quite advantageous to see this inside the portfolio of Unreal projects that are out there, because it just expands the different styles Unreal can really foster, and being able to add to that portfolio and really show to the world that all of this stuff is possible if you have the people and the talent behind it. I think that this is quite exciting.
And so we conclude our Production Diary series, looking into the amazing real-time landscape of project development at Steamroller Animation. These videos would not have been possible without the amazing Steamroller marketing team that put them together, as well as the talented artists, technicians, and support staff on Spice Frontier. Together, we are truly forging a new path to the future of animated storytelling.